the mic. There we go. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi.
Yes.
Councilmember Graves.
Here.
Councilmember Saper.
Here.
Councilmember Tull.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Here.
All right. Pledge of allegiance. All right. Moving right along, we have the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next up, comments from the public. Anyone wishing to speak, please step up to the podium. Name and address, please.
I'll go first. Dave Wood here, 2414 Erie Street. I already assured Jesse I'm not going to talk about masks or vaccines, but I do want to talk a little bit about the budget. To be sure, you've got some really good things in this year's budget, but as any good government body, you've got some pork, you've got some bailouts, you've got some subsidies. So I just wanted to mention those as a concerned citizen. Let's talk about the pork. $600,000 to remodel the community development portion of upstairs. Wow. Really? Merry Christmas, Sarah. About a bailout, we got one of those too. You've set aside $4 million in case we have to destroy the old Purina mill because, and I quote, the owner of the property lacks the financial resources to address the condition of the property. I fail to see why that's our responsibility. My house needs some serious foundation repair. Maybe I could get that on next year's budget. My favorite is subsidies. We already subsidize the bus service, which is sorely underused, very expensive for the city. Now you want to subsidize Y memberships. The Y's a money pit. Everybody knows it. It's already heavily subsidized, and now you want to add more subsidies. I mean, honestly, folks, only a government entity would think you can spend your way out of debt. That is not a good formula at all. I'm not even going to talk about the silliness of the $1 million parking lot. You all know how I feel about that. And the hypocrisy of some of these. Let me take you back to a recent council meeting. You guys are getting updated from the North Kansas City Business Council. I think they do an annual update for you. The real bone of contention that one of the things that you took great exception to is that they spend $12,000 a year on printing. Oh my God, the waste. $12,000 on printing. But you know, the rest of this stuff's okay. A little hypocritical there. So, you know, I like all of you folks, as I'm sure most people do, but I cannot be the only one in this city that's suffering a little voter's remorse right now. I mean, it wasn't very long ago, a lot of you were complaining and criticizing about the previous mayor and some of the council members as the good old boys club because they did what they wanted to do, they took care of their friends, they wouldn't listen. But everything's okay now, right? Because now you get to do what you want to do, right? Take care of your friends. I mean, as the song says, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. You're looking a whole lot like that which you criticized and condemned not very long ago. So maybe, Mr. Mayor, this is for you specifically, maybe you could help us all understand a little bit of this. Recently, 2 separate times over the summer, you used the phrase, share our vision, and I was kind of curious what that meant. One of the times was at a council meeting where you were discussing the road district folks, and you had some real issues with the road district folks, and you commented that perhaps we need to get some people to run for those positions that, and I quote, share our vision. The other time earlier in the summer, you were at an EIC meeting, Equity and Inclusion Committee, and you asked them to help you recruit some boards and commission appointees. And again, you said people that, and I quote, share our vision. So I, for one, would kind of like to know if you would care to share. I'll cede the rest of my 5 minutes to you. If you could share with us, what is the vision that you and your group are talking about? So the floor is yours.
I don't recall adding share our vision to that. First of all, I do remember mentioning something about asking people to run for the road district if we're looking for some sort of difference on the road district, then people should run for the road district. The ESC one, I'd have to go back and watch. I don't remember in what context I said
And
share our
maybe you
vision.
could update us at a later date, but I, for one, would be really curious is, what, and I don't know who is involved in this vision, but I, as a longtime resident and somebody that cares about the city, I would like to know what that vision is, because I'm confused. And, some of this stuff in this budget, I'm just shaking my head at. I mean, I don't know where this stuff's coming from, but if you could help me understand, that would be great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, anyone else for public comments this evening? Good evening.
Aaron Hansen, 500 East 26th Avenue. Can we get some help with the parking from the high school? They took out that giant parking lot, and the residents are stuck with it. And it gets old, over and over, parking in your yards. People park behind their houses in their yards. Kids fighting in the street because they're parked too close to each other. It gets old. I've been in that house for a long time, and it was never that bad until they took that parking lot out. Oh, we do about skateboarding ordinance in North Kansas City. Maybe a skate park for the kids to go to. 26th Street is a drag strip. Can we get a stop sign at Fayette by chance? It's just a drag strip. I bet a truck went 100 miles an hour the other night down it. Oh, what else? Trash from the school. My 7-year-old daughter walks 26th Street once a week picking up trash from the school. Can we get some trash cans? Get the school to pick it up? Something, please? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next public comment, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jim Dunn, and I live on 29th Avenue. I apologize for reading, but I would like to be as concise and as quick as possible, so I appreciate your indulgence. When my appointment to the City Planning Commission was proposed several years ago, I was honored, and I was excited for the challenge. In retirement, I've enjoyed volunteer opportunities that allow me to contribute to my community and to causes that are important to me. However, that positive feeling quickly dissipated when on the night of the City Council vote, my nomination was pulled from the consent agenda and characterized as an affront to equity and diversity. I felt blindsided, but mostly I was saddened and disappointed. I have spent much of my personal and professional life serving some of the most marginalized members of our community: foster children, incarcerated youth, adult probation and parolees, persons with disabilities, and children who, for a variety of reasons, felt unwelcomed in schools. The idea that my volunteer service was somehow impeding opportunities for others or a step backward for our city was not okay to me. And I never really got okay with it over the course of the 2 years of my tenure on the Planning Commission. Several months ago, I decided to resign from the Planning Commission, and I specifically asked that in doing so, the mayor select a member of our community from an underrepresented group to participate in my place. My hope was to make a small sacrifice for the sake of increasing the diversity and inclusion in our community. So you can imagine my surprise when I learned that a cisgender white resident from one of our city's most affluent neighborhoods had been selected by the mayor to fill the remaining term of my position. Not only is this nomination not in keeping with the spirit of my resignation request, but more importantly, contrary to the position Mr. DeLong and other members of this council have publicly taken regarding increasing diverse representation. I don't accept the argument that the mayor simply chose from the available applicant pool. Many of you on this council are here because you were approached and encouraged to run. In order to increase diversity, we may have to invite people to participate, particularly people who have historically felt unwelcome at the tables of power and decision-making. We have a newly created Inclusion and Diversity Committee. It seems a critical role of this group should be to find and recruit underrepresented community members to participate at all levels of government. Important conversations are great, meaning meaningful action is better. At this point, I would not encourage you to oppose the Planning Commission nominee before you tonight. I think it's incredibly disrespectful and frankly bad form to reject volunteer service when offered by qualified candidates, particularly once a public nomination has been extended. This council has hopefully learned this lesson from its own unfortunate decisions of late. I do not regret my decision to yield my commission seat. I have done my part as an individual. But I wanted to come tonight to say I believe you squandered an opportunity to do the right thing, a better thing, by choosing someone who might have helped the Planning Commission better reflect the varying perspectives and voices of all of our businesses and residents in this community. I'm holding out hope you'll do better next time.
Thank you. Further public comments? Please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Lauren Wells. I know you all know of me a little bit. I live on 22nd and Knox, near the Little Store. I come to you tonight in concern of the proposed budget for the next fiscal year. There are several items that myself and other members of the community agree that are excessive and in need of a revision. I'm concerned that we have established a pattern of negligent spending, and it continues to be a hot topic in the community. The community remains outraged at the cost of the Complete Streets project, its ineffectiveness, and detrimental effects on traffic flow and safety. The budget for this project alone is concerning, especially, I just got glasses, sorry. The budget for this project alone is concerning, especially considering that this development will most likely be affected by a streetcar in the near future. I am all for the aesthetic improvement of our city, but I'm concerned that we are throwing around a lot of money for things that we are not in need of at this time. For example, $80,000 for directional signage for visitors. Our streets continue to get more and more cluttered with scooters, distracting crosswalks, parklets, parking barriers, speed humps, and parking delineators. To make North Kansas City more navigable, we should be looking at simplifying what we already have before we add any more distractions to the roadway. We should be concerned about the safety not only of our community, but also those who visit North Kansas City. Second, we are allotting an excessive budget of $600,000 for a fancy city hall renovation. And another, this one's hilarious, $88,000 to replace office furniture for police dispatch. I think this might be a clerical error. I don't know. That seems crazy. Absolutely crazy. I think both of those should be cut in half, at least. The best way to ensure the trust of your community is to responsibly manage its collective resource and do so in an appropriate time. To date, there's been a wealth of backtracking and putting the cart before the horse that has ultimately wasted hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, of taxpayer dollars. What is the life-to-date cost spent on the Complete Street project before and after first, second, and third phases coming up? Although I understand we have had an influx in resource to the city through COVID funds, we still have a responsibility to not spend it frivolously. There are currently families losing jobs and families that could really use a hand up. There are countless homeless and other displaced people in our community, and that number is going to increase with our current unemployment epidemic. We need to be frugal in these unprecedented times and utilize our community's resources like they belong to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comments? Seeing none. Now I got my agenda backwards. Boom. Next item is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
There's a first and second. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next,
Item 13, approval of fiscal year 2021 city budget, resolution number 21-074, public hearing.
all right. So in terms of process, I will open the public hearing. We will get a staff report, and then we will actually do public comments after the staff report. I have opened the public hearing. Kim?
Mayor and Council. The City Council met on August 31st and on September 8th and did provide input into the proposed budget through 2 separate work sessions. Presented now for the council approval is a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2021 city budget. With the changes in the proposed budget, they have been line for line accounted for in the staff memo. We do have, if there are any further questions that the city council may have, we are happy to answer them at this time.
That's out of order, what I got on my sheet here. This way, okay. Councilmember comments. Councilmember Clevenger.
Just a comment, about the budget. Thank you for bringing it forward. A couple of residents have talked about the community center remodel, or not the community development remodel for $600,000. That's an item that's actually been in the last couple of budgets. Just because it's budgeted doesn't mean that we're going to spend that full amount. A lot of times items come in under budget, but the community development area upstairs is kind of, if you haven't been up there, it's kind of weirdly designed, and they need for plans and reviewing plans and bigger tables and things. I don't know, I can't get into all the logistics of it, but it's something that's been in the budget for the past 3 or 4 years and been put off many different times because of, budget constraints, or then when COVID hit, and so now it's just coming back in. So I understand that it's a lot of money, and I understand it's concerning, but I do think it is needed for community development, so, I support it. Just wanted to give a little background on it.
Other, Councilmember Saper.
I would like people to remember that a budget is a fluid, ongoing document. And for any of those items to actually get funded, they have to come individually before the city council. And I would encourage those who have questions about particular items to come and be very active at those council meetings when those are actually brought forward for funding. Again, remember, a budget is just a general overall wish list, if you will, and we haven't funded it. So those who have objections and suggestions, remember that a budget can always be changed throughout the course of the year, added to or deleted. So I would ask you very much to be active and mindful when they actually come up for discussion and vote by the council. Thank you.
Further councilmember comments at this time? Seeing none, I will go back to public comments here. Are there any further public comments on the budget? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on the budget now and ask for a motion on the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Number 14.
Ride KC service update.
Kim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to welcome Bryce Shields and John Moore from KCATA Ride KC. They would like to update the city council on where they are on a few projects.
Yes, good evening, Mayor. My name is Bryce Shields and Council. Bryce Shields, I'm the Deputy Director for the Government Relations Department at the KCATA. I also manage our community contracts on relations. If you remember Don Bolin, he has left the KCATA to take a job in Michigan. I'm taking over his responsibilities in that regards. This is also John Moore. He's our planning manager at the KCATA, and he'll be here for some of the more technical aspects of our presentation this evening. Oh. Yes, would you please load the presentation? All right. So what we're going to talk about is the future of the North Kansas City Flex Zone. So we're going to talk about the current service, how our ridership trends have been going for the last few years, some customer survey we did in April, and then our flex proposal and flex cost savings. So the current service, Monday through Friday, runs from about 6 to 9. Saturday's a little bit more reduced, 8:40 to 7:20, and Sundays and holidays, it's only runs about 10:45 to 6:10. So pretty good coverage on Monday through Friday and Saturday. Sunday is a little bit shrunk as the needs are not quite there for more extended hours. Right now, if you want to use the flex service, you have to call at least 24 hours in advance and schedule a service. Schedule a trip, say where you want to be picked up and where you want to go. That is a barrier for some people to want to use the service because they have to know 24 hours in advance at the least of where they want to go. The service's unit cost is unchanged. All service cost is borne by North Kansas City, and we've been having some staff challenges since July. As you may be aware, everywhere in the transit industry has been having staffing challenges, and beyond just transit industry. We are not immune to that. We are doing some massive hiring pushes to help resolve that, but just so you're aware, we have been having some staffing issues, which has related to some missed trips. These are our ridership trends for the last 3 years. As you can see, we were down pretty significantly in last year, obviously due to the pandemic. We have rebounded for the most part this year. Only this is your daily average, by the way. So weekdays we're only down a few from 2019. Saturdays only down a couple. Sundays hasn't recovered quite as much, but for the most part, ridership is relatively unchanged. We did a survey in April. It was available to riders to take for about a month. We had 28 survey respondents. Some details on that. Our demographics and customer satisfaction, 70% of the people that we surveyed using the North Kansas City Flex live in North Kansas City. 54% of them are 50 years or older. 10% have an alternative form of transportation. The alternative way of thinking about that is 90% don't have another means other than using the North Kansas City Flex or other Ride KC services. 90% rate the service as either good or excellent. As for usage, 80% use the bus to get to work. 50% are daily riders, and 84% ride more than once a week, so pretty repeat and routine riders. The 201 North Oak is the most used fixed route service, which is the service that runs right through your city. And then 80% have been riding for several years. 28% use the service in the evening or late evening. So most ridership is during the core of the day, not in the late evening hours. So survey results, top 5 places people like to go: North Kansas City Hospital, Harrah's Casino, Sunny Hill Apartments, French Quarter Apartments, and then the Save-A-Lot. If you want to break it down by the kind of locations, when it comes to retail and medical, CVS, Save-A-Lot, North KC Hospital, YMCA, McDonald's. For residentials, the French Quarter Apartments receives the most traffic, as well as Sunny Hill Apartments, American Inn, Loft Apartments at 715 Armour Street, the Gardens at Northgate Village. The top 5 commercial jobs are, again, Harrah's, as it was in the top 5 overall. The 12th and Erie Street, 11th and Clay, North Kansas City High School, and First Baptist, Great American Building Materials. Those are assumptions based off of drop-off locations and pickup locations. We can't assume that's specifically where they are going. I'm now going to introduce John here for some more technical aspects of our planned Flex upgrade proposal. John, if you want to come up.
Evening, Mayor, Council. Once again, John Moore, Planning and Scheduling Manager for KCATA Ride KC. I just wanted to go over an update of sort of how the Flex is doing currently and what we're proposing here for the coming months ahead. As far as October 2021, we are considering some changes just depending on staffing necessarily. So what happens is here in the next few weeks, we'll have selection for our quarterly markup. And so based off of the selection and available staffing for the North Kansas City service, we'll have a better idea of how frequent will be able to fill that position. So we still have a few weeks until we know for sure whether that piece of work is selected. So that's just something we'll need to maintain communication on. That's not necessarily something that, we can establish for the union to select themselves. It's based off of seniority status and which routes are more attractive to those operators. So that's just something we'll want to keep an eye on as we make some decisions going forward as far as potential cuts. As far as modernizing operations, here come October 24th is our, once again, quarterly markup. So that is when we'll begin using our spare lab services. So we'll actually be beginning to dispatch with that service. And a few weeks after that, we will intend to open that up to the public as far as using the app to schedule those trips. We will maintain the 24-hour requirement of scheduling trips prior to that desired time. And that's more or less just making sure that we don't make too many changes before we know that the service is actually working as expected. So as soon as we get some positive results on that, we will consider some options for on-demand scheduling as well. A few other details on that. When it comes to dispatching, we'll have reduced requirements for dispatching because we'll be using the app instead of actually calling in. We'll still have that option Monday through Friday, but that is another detail that will provide some efficiencies. As far as promoting the service, we'll be promoting those changes here in the coming weeks. There's another opportunity in the future where we can establish some future virtual bus stops where it's another efficiency we can provide where instead of picking up and dropping off at each individual location, we can actually co-locate those popular destinations into a nearby area where you're dropping off several people and they're relatively close to where that destination is. So just another opportunity or tool in the toolbox. Another thing coming up in 2022, we intend to expand the Gladstone zone. So currently it's more or less around the city limits of Gladstone, and that will be extended further south into the KCMO city limits. That is something that is still on the table as far as combining the Gladstone zone with the North Kansas City zone. And so that is up for debate still, but that is just another opportunity that could provide some efficiencies. Sorry, my glasses are falling off the mask. Okay. And then finally, as far as reintroducing and increasing fares, that is another item to consider when we're combining those zones. So originally we had it at a quarter. Currently we're not charging fares at this point. We're doing zero fare across the board. Once we do return fares, more or less that's based off of the on-demand services. So once we check that box for on-demand trips with that application, that's another opportunity where there'll have to be some coordination with the Gladstone zone if we do end up making that decision to combine those services. So as far as cost savings, like I said, with the dispatching, that'll be limited need on Saturdays and Sundays. But as far as cost savings, it's fairly minimal. What we did on the table there is basically identified the cost for each of those services. And so primarily, the most easily cut with the least amount of impact to the overall ridership would be that Saturday and Sunday service outlined there. And so that's based off of either the 12-month or 6-month amount. And so those are some opportunities as far as cost savings down the road. If you look at 2019 ridership and then apply that quarter fare per trip, look like as far as cost savings for, what is it, $3,843. So, and that's based off of 2019 ridership. So a lot of elements to consider, especially because some of that ridership is still trying to come back to what those 2019 levels were. And then another opportunity as far as cost savings is combining that Gladstone and KCMO zone. And that's not necessarily based off of use, but based off of how we would charge those trips. And so while more or less we're looking at mileage right now, that's more of a cost per trip method where potentially, what we would look at is the origins and destinations of some of those trips. So more or less, those trips that are originating in North Kansas City would be the only ones that you would be charged for. And so little things like that, in addition to the mileage of each of those trips, would be applied to those costs. So like I said, a few things to think about in the next few months. We intend to come back November, December time to reassess these costs and alternatives for when we do re-up for that one-year annual contract. Yeah. So, and we'll also have that option to re-up with the staff approval as well. So with that, any questions? Yeah.
All right, Councilmember Clevenger.
I'll start us off. Thank you for the presentation. I'm a frequent user of the Flex service, and I'm one of the ones, you're 90%, that don't have alternate form of transportation. As far as, you answered one question that I had about staffing issues. It seems like when we call in lately to the dispatch center to schedule a ride, there's quite a long wait time, and I'm assuming that's due to your staffing levels right now. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Okay, yeah, and I understand that. So, and looking at these different things, I'm excited about the app to where, if we can schedule a ride on the app, then we don't have to call in, which reduces some of our dispatch costs. A lot of people use it for work, so a lot of people, in the early morning do use it, I believe. Not so sure about the late evening, but thank you for your presentation.
Further councilmember comment? Councilmember Saper.
Actually, I see this service as actually part of the Complete Streets project. Complete Streets is about transit mobility. People driving, walking, bicycling, using scooters. But there are some people who can't and don't drive, who don't bicycle, who don't ride scooters, and who don't walk for whatever reason. They need this mobility service to use our complete streets. And it seems that if we're going to spend tens of millions of dollars on complete street projects, trying to nickel and dime this kind of service for those who can't walk, who can't drive, who can't bicycle, who can't use a scooter, is the wrong thing to do. And however we come to what kind of service we have, whether it's still in North Kansas City only or expanded elsewhere, it's something to remember that this cost is not a cost, it's a service. It acts exactly as a service is for complete streets. And the only question I have for you is, why do you need 24-hour notice now?
So the requirement for the 24-hour notice is basically how all our flex services operate at this point. What we have for so currently we don't have, when it comes to that application and everything, we don't have, I guess technically it could be possible, but more or less the 24-hour reservation is due to limit the demand for that services, because based off of how many vehicles that we have available, there's only so many trips that can be provided at any given time. And so that's more or less the main reason that 24-hour reservation requirement is in there currently.
The reason I ask that is because I once drove that service, and there was a on-demand call.
Yeah, so currently it's set up for 24 hours, but if demand, or if there is available capacity to provide a trip at any given time, they will honor that.
They will?
Yeah, they will. So I think more or less it's advertised as 24 hours, like I said, due to just the available capacity of vehicles that we have. But there is that opportunity, and I think more or less with the new app, that'll become more available, more or less just due to the ease of use with the app as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith.
So looking at this table here that's on this last, I guess it's up there as well. a couple of the options that are provided there, weekdays with Saturday hours and weekdays with Sunday hours, those don't really seem workable, given that a lot of people are taking this to work. So if we're looking at like 8:40 start time, I think was one, and 10:45, I mean, we may as well cross those off the table. I do think we talked about shaving a half an hour off of the end of the day or early in the day, and there was a substantial cost saving. So when we do have that meeting, I'd like to see like a table of what that would look like if we took a half hour, an hour off the end of a given day, what the savings would be, and what the ridership looks like at that point in the day. Because if we're keeping it on and it's costing us a lot more money for nobody to ride it, that's where I think we can start really seeing some cost savings. So when we come back to it.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Good point.
Any further council member comments? Councilmember Clevenger.
One other thing I forgot to add is that, do you think with all the changes that are coming in October and the new rollout, when we do come at the end of December, maybe a question for staff, we're going to try to do a one-year contract instead of a 6-month for the next contract?
Yes, so KC80, they wanted to come and kind of brief the council on where they are as they're beginning their implementation process. Some of the things that we have been chatting with is we would have a work session sometime in November. That way we have a couple of months, a little bit more data with the new rollout, get a better understanding of how it's going for KCATA's process, as well as what would be the impact and what would be the options available for the city council to decide on the next 12-month contract. So we kind of heard some of your comments before that you wanted a little bit more time, perhaps to be able to see some options a little bit more in advance of a decision. So we will be inviting them back again, probably the second meeting in November, so that you guys can get some of the answers that you would like to see, and then bring forward a contract in December for the city council to consider.
Council member comments? Seeing none, thank you both for the presentation this evening, and we will see you again in a few months.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 15, Emergency Order Reauthorization, COVID-19, Bill Number 7625, Ordinance Number 9422.
Kim.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Councilmember Smith has requested that an extension of Mayor DeLong's order, number 21002, be placed on the City Council agenda so that the City Council may vote to extend the order for a period of 30 calendar days from September 25th, 2021 until October 23rd, 2021, unless rescinded, extended, modified, amended pursuant to applicable law. The ordinance number 9422 with order number 21003 has been prepared for the City Council's conversation, deliberation, and movement.
I just have two things real quick. Clay County is currently, last I looked at, 47% vaccinated for 12 and over, which is all eligible. News yesterday was that Pfizer's promise is looking like 5 to 11-year-olds are going to be able to get vaccinated, hopefully very soon. So this mask has always been protecting the people who right now can't get vaccinated, and this is doing our part as a council and a city to protect those kids. Having said that, move to approve.
Second.
No, I need,
Motion for a first reading.
Yeah.
Is there a motion for a first reading?
There you go.
Motion.
Or that.
Second.
There we go.
who made the second? I'm sorry.
He made the first and second, so I don't know what we're doing here. He said first
Okay.
reading, second, there we go. We've got to a conclusion there. All right, further council member comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries 7-1. Or first reading carries 7-1, there we go.
An ordinance approving Public Health Order 21-003 regarding COVID-19 in the city of North Kansas City, Missouri, and authorizing the extension of the effective period of the current Order 21-002 dated August 18th, 2021, from September 25th, 2021 until October 23rd, 2021.
I move that Bill number 7625 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9422.
Second.
Any comments? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
No.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
7-1, motion carried. An ordinance approving Public Health Order 21-003 regarding COVID-19 in the city of North Kansas City, Missouri, and authorizing the extension of the effective period of the current Order 21-002, dated August 18, 2021, from September 25, 2021, until October 23, 2021. A lot of 2021s. Number 16, zoning ordinance text amendments regarding short-term conditional uses, section 17.12.040, bill number 7624, ordinance number 9421.
Kim.
Good evening. I'd like to call on the city's Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. A short-term conditional use permits is the long name in our ordinance for special event permits. I'm sure you all are all familiar with them. They commonly appear on your consent agenda. Earlier this year, there was an inquiry made to the city administrator that prompted us to go back and take a close look at the text of this section. And in doing so, we realized that when we adopted the new zoning ordinance in 2019, we'd made some changes to this section that were not really what we intended. And we referred to the conditional use permit process in the ordinance, which is a different process that requires a public hearing before the Planning Commission before an ordinance comes to you, and is not how we approve special event permits. So this ordinance before you tonight corrects that so that the ordinance language matches our practice in how we approve these. This public hearing for this item was held before the Planning Commission on September 2nd. No one spoke at the public hearing, and the Commission unanimously recommended approval of this amendment to you. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
First reading?
Second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
An ordinance amending section 17.12.040, specific use standards of the code of the city of North Kansas City, Missouri regarding short-term conditional uses.
I move that bill number 7624 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9421.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance amending section 17.12.040, specific use standards of the code of the city of North Kansas City, Missouri regarding short-term conditional uses. Number 17, zoning map amendment, PC 2021-05, Lot 2, NKC Destination Development, bill number 7623, ordinance number 9420.
Kim.
I'd like to call on the city's Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
So Lot 2 in North Kansas City Destination Development is the lot across the street from the backyard apartments. The rezoning before you would rezone a majority of that lot, but excluding 2.7 acres along the northern boundary, from C3, which is our general commercial district, to R4 mixed density neighborhood, to allow for the development of an apartment project on this lot. The developer does expect to subdivide the lot to, remove the 2.7 acres that are not being rezoned from this area. The Planning Commission held the public hearing on this matter on September 2nd. We did have one person speak at the public hearing with regard to the payment of prevailing wages and other labor requirements. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the rezoning with no conditions to you, with no conditions for the rezoning, but asking us to provide you some information about prevailing wages, and that was included in your packet tonight. We do have a representative of the component developer, John McGurk with Millhouse, if you have questions about this development, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the rezoning.
All right, any council member comments? Is there a motion for a first reading? I'm sorry, Councilmember Saper.
As I've opposed developments, apartment developments in the past that have not included reduced rate apartments, I voted against those. And since this will lead to another development that will not have affordable housing as a component, and as this will also lead to, we have no prevailing wage requirement in the city, for those reasons, I cannot support this.
Thank you. Are there council member comments? There was a first reading on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a first and second. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Oh, there. 7-1. Motion carries.
An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance in the official zoning district map of the city of North Kansas City, Missouri by changing the zoning of certain described real property from C3 general business to R4 mixed density neighborhood.
I move that Bill number 7623 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9420.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
No.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
7-1, motion carried. An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance in the official zoning district map of the city of North Kansas City, Missouri by changing the zoning of certain described real property from C3 general business to R4 mixed density neighborhood. Number 18, agreement with North Kansas City YMCA for city subsidized memberships, resolution number 21-072.
Kim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Back on July 6th, Tina Weaver, the Executive Director of the North Kansas City YMCA, who is here joining us today, presented in a work session a new program called NKC Healthy Citizens. Through this program, there is proposed for a city subsidized membership rate to the North Kansas City YMCA for residents of North Kansas City. During that work session, the City Council had requested that the YMCA re-examine some of the cost-sharing structure. And with that in mind, the YMCA did prepare, and I placed it in the memo, kind of what was originally proposed, as well as what the new revised proposal will be. If the City Council is amenable to this new cost share, an agreement and resolution has been prepared for you this evening. And should the City Council approve these documents this evening, the program would go into effect October 1st, aligning with the new budget. So should the City Council have any questions, again, I am joined this evening by Tina Weaver.
Very presentation, or is this just questions? We're just doing questions to you, right? Well, good evening.
Good
Welcome.
evening.
Councilmember comments. Councilmember Saper, then Smith.
The proposed membership fees as a result of the cost sharing, would those be the same as the legacy fees for those who have maintained their membership since the time it was?
Thank you for that question. We're right in that threshold. We also wanted to continue to take the value and respect of the legacy member, and it is just a hair below what these rates are. So we're still keeping legacy rates as those prime, and these are just a couple of dollars above that level.
It would seem to me it would be reasonable to try to adjust them down to be exactly the same.
I think in the discussions, there's a value of understanding that the legacy membership was designed for those folks who were part of the community center prior to it becoming a YMCA, and continuing evaluating that. If this is something we want to reconsider, we can certainly do so. I just wanted to continue to show that warranted interest in understanding that the legacy rate in that prime point of cost.
So I'm going to throw in a question, then I'll get to you. If we approve this program, the legacy rates, those people that have the legacy rates will get to keep the legacy rates.
Absolutely. The legacy rates are locked and loaded, and these rates are just, like I mentioned, a degree above what those costs are currently.
Councilmember Smith.
Okay, Tina, thank you so much for all the back and forth, giving me all the numbers today. So a couple things about the proposal. First, a question to you. So the original proposal was the YMCA contributing $2.50, and now it's $5. Where did these numbers come from?
So we wanted to look at the cost share of it and finding a balance between the individual and what the household. And right around this, in this margin right now, we're around that 80-20. in just understanding how we invest into it. So what we did was we broke this down of the total cost of the membership, which you can see on your Exhibit A there at $59.50 and the $92. And then we did the breakdown of what the city and the YMCA would invest, and then the the citizens' contribution on that.
Okay. Did you say 59.50?
Yeah, if you look at Exhibit A, you can see what the total original cost would be, and then how we were able to break down the three contributions between the city, the YMCA, and the citizen.
Okay, Exhibit A.
It's the last page in the packet. It's the actual very last page of the PDF for that particular item.
Okay, unless I typed these in wrong, I'm coming up with a different number total. So $19.50, $5.35 comes to $54.50. Am I doing that wrong?
So no, you're close. So way we can look at this is 1950 plus 5 plus 35 equals 59.50.
Okay. 1950. So I did type in a number wrong. That's okay. Let's fix that real quick. Okay, so thank you for that. My concern becomes this. While what you articulated there makes sense, what it kind of misses is the back end of the contract that we have with the YMCA, where we pay out 17% of revenue based on where we're at with profitability now. And then if there's any net income, we share 50-50. There's net loss, we take 100. The city takes 100% of that loss. So, and you and I had some back and forth on what the marginal cost of another member is. If we're assuming that's zero, like we'll just hold that out if we can optimize everything. So assuming that's zero, the city kicks in, we'll use the individual $19.50, and then that creates additional net income, which we then pay out on. So each new additional member would create a portion of net income where we would be paying $29.75 to the YMCA because of that new membership. And then on the share of revenue, we would pay another $10.12. So at the end of everything, instead of costing us $19.50, it would end up costing us almost $60 per new member because of the back end of the contract as well. There is some income gain from having, that money come in the door. So it nets out, the city almost is a wash, and the YMCA makes, it looks like $35 per new member. City gets nothing out of that. And then in the family membership, it's similar, it's just larger numbers. So instead of costing us $17, it costs us $82, and the YMCA makes $60 on that. So there's just a bit of an imbalance in because of the back end of the contract. If it was just the numbers up front, it would be pretty fair. But since we then pay out on the back end, and then if we end up in a net loss position, the numbers get worse, because instead of cutting a 50-50 split, we owe 100% of that difference. So if we're in net loss, the numbers go up quite a bit from our end. So my struggle is, since we do have this contract and we have a payout requirement, this becomes kind of a bad deal for the city, even though it's well intended. There is a proposal that I mapped out on a break even, where the YMCA and the city make the same amount of money per new member, but it comes with it actually comes at a lesser dollar per family and per single. It would be $30 for a single, $60 for a family. Under the single members, the YMCA would kick in $21. City would fund $3. And under the family, YMCA would contribute $31, and the family, city would contribute $1. And it breaks dead even at the back end. So everybody, we each make a 50-50 split. So this would be something to look at, those numbers down the road. But I just, as it sits, I can't really support it because of the big imbalance there.
May I respond?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So this has been a journey, as we are aware. Prior to the YMCA's management, the community center was losing nearly $1.5 million. And in its time, pre-COVID, we've seen a complete change in what that revenue generation and what the total net has. If we looked at our year-end actuals of 2019 prior to COVID, we saw our first net positive of $124,000, where the city gained 50% of that, right? And every year prior to that, post-2015, we saw incremental growth that really allowed this community to not have the responsibility, the financial responsibility of a negative 1.5, right? So the YMCA has done a tremendous job flipping that around and putting that investment back into the opportunities. I would say 2020 wasn't the best year. We can own that. We understand it, and I call it a blip year because I don't even want to look at it, to be honest with you. It was hard and it was challenging, and it continues to be. I would also say that the community, from Ms. Wells, who was up here earlier, she's done her own navigating of charting. Is this a need? Is there something we're interested on our North Kansas City Neighbor Facebook page? And a resounding response has been, it's too expensive, right? So we hear that and we see that. But I also want to emphasize something to you, Council Member Smith. When you look at our composite rate, so our composite rate is a generated number that includes that of the scholarship financial assistance that we're able to provide to our community and still generate, at the end of the year, a positive net. The YMCA distributes about $250,000 in financial assistance to the community yearly. That's through membership dues, financial assistance for swim lessons, various programs, New American Welcome Center, ESL classes, things of that nature, right? So it's a pretty significant kickback already of what we overall do for our community. And we'll continue. We won't turn people away. We do everything we can. But when we go down the road of understanding our composite rate, so our composite rate gives us an understanding of what those folks on financial assistance and those folks that are on full pay, where that's at, right? That's right around $52 per unit. That gives us a good understanding that that's that threshold of where comfortability is navigated in the unit counts that we have, right? That's for the unit counts. I can't give you a number for the folks that aren't members that may disagree with that number, but when we understand our composite rate, folks are coming in and finding that that $52 is where they're at. We're coming in with this proposal, this balanced proposal here of presenting a $35 individual membership fee and $70 for the family. So, Councilmember Smith, to your comments, we've done a tremendous job, and I want the YMCA to have some credit, but we could not have done it without the partnership of the city. So I just wanted to give those nuggets back to you.
Certainly, and absolutely, the YMCA has turned the place around. I mean, it was, like you said, it was a money pit, and you've done a great job, not only that, but with what you're doing with the community outreach, the event that we had at Harrah's. A lot of good being done. Not to discount that at all. I'm looking at this in a vacuum. This single program that we're talking about piloting, and as this program itself sits, if we're going to embark on this, I'd like to see it be a more financially sustainable thing for the city as well as the YMCA, where we both win. So I would like to take these numbers and maybe work with yourself and with some of the decision makers at the regional level. I don't know who would have to sign off on a deal like this, or if it's just something that you can do to get it to where it's a little bit of a more equitable situation for the city and the Y.
Yeah, and I would just say, just in this honest and candid conversation right now, a $5 contribution increased to a $21 contribution from the YMCA's end is a significant impact. And you see the trajectory that we're working on now. We're trying to get back to that net positive for the city and for the Y and for our community, right? That could be some trajectory numbers that may not be so pleasant.
And by no means are those like take it or leave it. That's just
sure,
the break even I got on my rough and dirty calculation.
Yeah. So,
Councilmember Clevenger.
Couple of things. Thank you for the presentation tonight, Tina. I think first of all, a couple of on the contract that was done in 2014, started in 2015. may not have been, the best deal for the city at the time. There wasn't a lot of options at the time. If we could either sell the facility and have no control or get someone in here to manage it, once the Y came in. That contract is up for renewal here in a couple of more years, so that's something we can look at. I think the general consensus of this program is our residents are calling for, a reduced rate for the YMCA if they live here. The cost is an issue for some of them, and that's where I think the city can come in. I mean, a lot of the money comes from the same pot where the city is, funding the full losses and sharing half and half in the profits. Whether we like that or not, that's the contract the way it is now. So, I mean, on the numbers, I'm not, for sure on the numbers, or if we want to work on the numbers, but I think it's something that our residents do want. I understand how some residents can see that it's putting more money into the YMCA, but we knew coming in that we would have to subsidize for reduced memberships. So I'd like to work with the Y. I think they've done a great job partnering and coming in and turning the place around from the 1.5 million, but those are my 2 cents.
I would just add, I really see this as a benefit we could provide for all of our residents. As this program stands, this would be people in multifamily units, be people in single-family units. This would be for all residents of the city. And it's really something since I first ran that I've heard a lot about. People want to see that reduced rate. People also want to keep their legacy rates. And, we provide services for lots of people, for lots of things. Internet, trash, bus service. Do you need to be Gorman Pool Pass? I mean, we do. We subsidize lots of things in lots of different ways. All these things are really building to a higher quality of life for our residents, and that's the goal here. And I thank Councilmember Clevenger for actually working on this program, because I think this really responds to what I've heard in the community over the last several years. And I appreciate the work you've done lately since you've taken over there. I've seen a lot more of an engaged Y at the facility. You provide more services for your community. You do it through your food pantry. You do it through your garden, the tech center, the New Americans Welcome Center. You have done so much, and I really appreciate all the work you've done. So I don't, I just really see this as a program that could benefit all of the community here. Other council member comments? Councilmember Ertl.
I really see this as an advantage if we use it to add lots of new memberships, and I think we can do that. Something that I thought the community center missed out on, and I came to speak at the meeting as a resident, is I don't think they worked very well with our apartments. We do have more than 70% of our residents live in apartments, and we do subsidize a lot. This is the quality of life. Some of those things don't extend to our residents, and I think that they should. So full disclosure, my husband is working on Gallery Lofts that already has an agreement to help with the Y, but I'm thinking of all of our apartments. If we could work with them to have leasing bonuses where they pick up the part that would be the individual, and I said that when it was the community center. Like, I really think that if we use this as a way to recruit many more people, that it will be successful. We're already paying the losses, so in my mind, we're just using the money for our residents, and we would have to pay it either way. The real advantage would be if we can use this program to generate new members, and I think we can if we're very strategic about it.
Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, thank you, Tina, for your presentation. And I met with you. Other people might not know this, but I reached out to you months ago before I knew that you're already working on this. And I asked, about reduced membership rates for residents. And the reason I asked you is because I'm approached a lot by residents asking specifically for reduced membership rates. Mr. Saper brought up the legacy rates being lower, which I think that is appropriate, actually. I think that if you're an OG member and you've been a member since it was the community center, I think that's okay, that they have a lower rate and they get a little bonus. That doesn't bother me. I'm in favor of this, and like Dave Wood came and spoke and left public comment, and called the, YMCA subsidy, pork spending. And I love Dave, but I do disagree with him in that regard. I do feel that on the city council, there are things that we should do that might not make sense dollars and cents wise, but it's something that you should do for the community, just for to add to people's quality of life. And I would say it also increases, people's fitness at a time of COVID. It's very important right now that people get into shape, because if, God forbid, you do get COVID, it's shown that if you're a more healthy, in shape person, then it might not affect you as negatively. And I also want to point out that you've told me this to my face, that, it's not just a gym. You guys do a lot with the community, as the mayor pointed out. You do have a food pantry. The teen center is very cool. You welcome new Americans. You do a lot of good for the community. So I see this as as a positive. I'm in favor of it. I do want to increase usage by the community. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, and you and I discussed how small a percentage of the overall members of the YMCA are actual residents of North Kansas City. And I also just want to point out that, my wife, for example, is a legacy member of the Y, but there are lots of other people in my neighborhood that let their membership expire during COVID, like during when we had the stay-at-home order, for example. I know a lady that used to swim there every day, and then there was a period of time when you actually, was it real that you had to swim with a mask on for a period of time? Is that true?
Not if you were going underwater lap swimming, no, but if you were taking group exercise classes in our water and not maintaining 6 feet, yes.
I was told that, and she was like, I quit the Y because I had to swim with a mask
Following
on, and
the
I'm like, that
ordinance.
is the craziest. I would think that you're like waterboarding yourself.
No,
So anyway,
and trust me, the ordinance, we support it. It's been extraordinarily challenging for us.
so there's people that come to me and they're like, I want to rejoin the Y, but I'm not going to, because I'm not going to pay that rate, and I'm a citizen of the community. I don't feel like I should have to pay the full rate, and I agree with them. And so for all those reasons, sorry to ramble, but I'm in favor of this. Thank you, Tina. I appreciate you. I know you put a lot of work into this too, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Further councilmember comments? Councilmember Clark.
I guess I go back and forth in my mind. With Jesse's examples, running all the numbers, when you kind of came out to the numbers being a wash, for me, that was just kind of like, okay, so if that's our risk, is that it comes out to a wash in sort of the best case scenario, it sounds like. That starts to say to me that it's worth the risk, because if it is a wash, we're already going to be spending the money. The benefit when we move the money away, as people have mentioned, the benefit is potentially a more healthy community, that they start to go, let's go back there. Like they're bothering, we're pitching in, yeah, we're supplementing, but it's more to encourage. It's not just to spend the money. We definitely don't like sitting here and looking at big dollar amounts ever. That's like the least favorite part of, I think, everyone's job. The money is the hardest part, because everything comes with a big dollar amount. But in sitting here thinking about it being a wash, I'm in support of just saying, okay, why not risk it to potentially bring people back on board, people that have lost their legacy memberships because they let them go, and see how it goes. Because I don't know, I guess because we haven't. And I know Jesse has spent all the time on the numbers, and I'm not against, I get it. It's still risky, and that's kind of the crapshoot of this job sometimes. It's all a risk, but she's also taking a risk. Like, companies are taking risk, and we're all adapting. So for that, all that to be said, I'm for it.
Thank you. Further councilmember comments? Councilmember Saper.
Yeah, it is a wash if you look at the city's contributions and in terms of the contract. But again, at the back end, the Y comes out ahead, as Jesse pointed out. And so I would like to go back to the drawing board a bit and see what kind of additional contribution the Y could make with all of that considered.
I would add to their additional contribution and say, really, they keep the legacy rates, but contractually that obligation expired in 2015. So they're already additionally subsidizing all of those memberships as well. So there is a larger subsidy than what we're actually seeing here. Sorry, don't take away my legacy rates. You said they're staying.
No, we want the legacy rates, and we
okay.
want folks to keep using them, but we do subsidize those, right? So that was part of our initial agreement, and that's significant savings that the Y subsidizes, not the city.
I mean, just to add to the total pot there and kind of the thinking of all of that. I think I saw your Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, so first off, when I got to that, correcting my input error, it came out to 0. That was news to me. I had it set like negative $8 or $9 per new member to the city. But it isn't an ideal scenario, and if we're in a net loss position, it could cost the city about $40 per new member. That's again taking some estimates. But if it's truly 0 and the YMCA is making money, like if our incremental cost is 0 and the Y is making money, that's great. They're doing good things with that money. I could support it. I came in intending to say no because the numbers weren't looking good at all. They still heavily do favor the YMCA, but it's not going to cost us anything extra, assuming that profitability is in play. If, like I say, if we're at a net loss, it is going to be costing us money. So I do go back and forth on it. I want more members of the YMCA. I want the health aspect, and I want to encourage the mission of the YMCA. Like I think I said in a previous, I grew up going to YMCAs. It's wonderful. So it's a tough one. I would like to see the numbers a little bit better for the city, but I could support if we're looking at a 0 additional cost.
Question on, and I could probably just pull up the PDF, but I'll ask you. How long is this contract? Is this just for a year that we're setting this out, or I guess I could ask either one of you, this initial phase here?
The design is on the yearly renewal.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Further council member comments?
Correct. We made this, sorry, I'm just going to interject real quick. It's designed to pattern off of the budget. That way, should the city council ever wish to change their mind, adjust, it is married kind of to the budgetary timeline.
Thank you. Further council member comments? What is this, a resolution? Is there a motion on the resolution?
I'll move to approve the resolution.
Second.
There's a first and second. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. I didn't hear any no's, so I'll call it a, is there any abstaining there? No. Motion carries.
Thank
19.
you, everyone. Appreciate it.
19, amendments to section 4.30.020, requirements to obtain sidewalk alcohol consumption license. Bill number 7627, ordinance number 9424.
Kim, I'm sorry.
No
I was
problem.
reading the item here.
I'm going to call on both the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland, and the Chief of Police, Kevin Freeland.
The next two items are related and are related to your last meeting of September 7th, when there was more discussion about amendments to Chapter 4.30 about sidewalk eating and alcohol consumption licenses. One of the directions that council gave us at that meeting was that you wanted to move forward as quickly as possible with any amendments to this section. And one of the amendments that you directed us to make was to expand the eligibility criteria to permit more businesses to obtain a sidewalk alcohol consumption license. And that's the amendment that's before you this evening. So this amendment would remove the requirement that at least 50% of an establishment's income from the past year be derived from the sale of food, and would allow any establishment that had a valid liquor license to obtain a sidewalk alcohol consumption license. That's the extent of the amendment that's before you tonight, and the chief and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Council member comments. Councilmember Roberts.
First reading.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just staring at you doing that. There is a first reading. Is there a second?
Second.
First and second. Any comments? Any further? Councilmember Toll.
Sorry. I have a couple things that I wanted to bring up. I know that there were concerns, I think, from the police chief and some items in here that I thought maybe we needed to discuss. One of them being a barrier.
That's the next item.
Okay, so we'll get to that later.
Yes.
They said these together, so I thought we were talking together.
No, so we kind of broke this out as two different agenda items just for clarity. So the first action, the action that's before you right now, is just the removal of the food requirement. That's it.
Got it.
The next item will be more of a discussion item.
Okay.
The city staff does have some concerns, which we kind of laid out in the memo. But again, we tried to break this up onto the agenda so that there was tremendous clarity to anybody who may want to come and discuss that those two items are completely separate.
Got it. Oh, wait.
Perfect. There is a first and second. Any further council member comments?
Can I know who made the first and second? Because I
Adam
missed
made the
it.
first, and we had a second from, yeah, somewhere. I'm just pointing. Pick one. Yeah.
I got him.
We are good. All right, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Nope.
No.
Yes. An ordinance,
First reading.
yes, first reading, I'm sorry. An ordinance amending Chapter 4.30 Sidewalk Eating and Alcohol Consumption Licenses regarding requirements to obtain sidewalk alcohol consumption licenses.
I move that Bill number 7627 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9424.
Second.
Any councilmember comments? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Plumby?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
8-0, motion carried. An ordinance amending Chapter 4.30 Sidewalk Eating and Alcohol Consumption Licenses regarding requirements to obtain sidewalk alcohol consumption licenses.
Kim.
So, and now we are going to move on to the discussion portion of this evening's agenda. And I'm going to once again call on the city's community development director and the city's police chief.
So at the last meeting, there was quite a bit of discussion about making changes to the regulations that govern licensees once they have the sidewalk dining and alcohol consumption license. And a lot of that centered on the requirement right now that there be a railing in place. And we asked for some time to clarify with the state what's going on with that railing requirement. The way that this has passed through city staff, kind of been handed down over time, is that our understanding was that that was a state requirement. And what we heard from the state, our local representative, in asking him about that, was that there's no state statutory requirement for access control or railings to be present. They ask establishments to provide that, but if establishments push back, they don't have a way to require that. From a staff perspective, we think that railing is extremely important, and we laid out the 4 reasons that we think that in the memo. One is that we do have city ordinance that prohibits drinking in public streets, alleys, open space, public parking areas, and other locations are mentioned in the ordinance. If there's no access control around sidewalk dining areas, it will be practically impossible for the police department to enforce Section 924020 that prohibits drinking in public, because the police officer will not be able to determine where the licensed area is. And if it appears in municipal court, we will have a hard time proving to the judge whether the person was cited in the licensed area or outside of it. Second, we have a lot of concerns about sidewalk encroachment. We have a responsibility to provide accessible spaces for pedestrians to pass all of our businesses downtown. And the regulations require 4 feet to be left clear for pedestrians, exclusive of tree wells or any other obstructions that are placed in the sidewalk, such as lights. If there's no railing that prohibits the sidewalk furniture from being moved, we have concerns about encroachment into that 4-foot clear area. Similarly, a lot of these sidewalk dining areas are placed close to the entrances of businesses. And we are concerned that without access control, sidewalk furnishings, or groups of patrons might congregate in areas that would block building egress. And that's a life safety concern for community development and for the fire department and for the police department. Finally, we do not have the staff capacity to enforce sidewalk dining area limits on an ongoing basis to make sure that they don't encroach into the sidewalk area or into building egress. And the static control that's provided by a railing that's placed, put in place and then doesn't move is really important for us to be able to address those first 3 concerns. And that's why we would ask that instead of removing the railing requirement, that we amend the ordinance to strengthen that requirement and make it a local requirement so that even if the state can't enforce that, we can, particularly here in downtown. Chief, is there anything else you'd like to add? Staff would be happy to take any questions you might have.
Chief Argus. No, I'm just kidding. I'll let you fill the gap. No. Councilmember comments. Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement. Just as an athlete, I appreciate lines and parameters to let me know what the heck I'm doing, you know? I mean, because without any lines or boundaries, then you just go loose and free. So I know it was mentioned last time, Adam, that Councilmember Roberts, that, you know, it was hard to come by for certain businesses. But I think with what this could offer them in growing their business to be able to expand out to the sidewalk, absolutely, with passersby. I don't know if you've ever been in New Orleans. You have. It's a nightmare. It's just open flow and the control. Super fun, but that's not where we are. And I'm all for the barriers. Just I can't imagine being a police officer and trying to look at just like yahoos walking all around and looking for just the walk over the line. They need to see somebody walking over the line so they can actually approach to say you did the thing that you can't do. So I'm for it.
I've been to New Orleans several times, and I don't recall whether there's barriers or not. So, okay. Councilmember Roberts.
Just to be clear, I wasn't against barriers. It was mostly the burden that the original restrictions had. However, I do think with the barriers, there should be, as we look towards like permanentizing parklets potentially, some kind of design element we might need to look at in the future so that there's not just craziness going on with these barriers that people are building, because people will find a very cost-effective way of doing this with maybe, you know, yellow ropes and things of that nature that are unsightly. So maybe some basic perimeters for now. Obviously, you guys approve everybody's parklets, so it's a little easier to control now. But as we get towards the future, maybe looking to sync up with the parklets, whatever that design may look at. There's a couple other things that weren't mentioned tonight that were mentioned last week, which is like the washing of sidewalks and the disallowance of music for people with the parklets. I don't know if we can look, or with the sidewalk cafes. Can we look at those two things and finding ways to potentially allow people that have sidewalk cafes to utilize those functions, or not have to wash sidewalks for one, but to maintain them in a clean manner, and then potentially maybe have music played, whatever acceptable level that would look at. I'm not sure. But I'm blown away by how quickly you guys brought this back to us. So very appreciative of all three of you all for doing this.
Councilmember Toll.
I am 100% in favor. I did have some things I wanted to discuss. Might have mentioned that earlier. As a patron, I appreciate knowing where I can go because I will follow the rules if I know the rules. So I am 100% on board with that. Adam actually brought up something I was going to say. We're about to spend a lot of money beautifying Armour Road, and we've already done Up Swift. So I think having some form of, I don't know, regulations, checklists, just so they're approved, because we're not going to want the fronts to look, I don't know, unsightly. It should go with our vibrant downtown. And the concerns that the police department may have, and concerns about the 4 feet access. I have a lot of people in my ward that don't necessarily ride bikes, but they do tell me that they love the walkability of what we're doing. So my proposal is I'm 100% in favor, but I would like it to be a sunset clause where we do this for 1 year and then we circle back and we have a chance to talk to Chief Freeman. We have a chance to hear from our residents about the walkability. We have a chance to see and hear and feel what it actually is going to be like.
Was that intended for the railing or for the last item? You meant for the railing? You want to go no railing? I'm sorry, I misunderstood the end of that there.
No, I'm in favor of the railing. I'm in favor of the 50% no food. I'm in favor of all of it, but I think there may be some unforeseen issues or some seen issues, and maybe we'll find out, you know what, it wasn't that big a deal. But I'd like to circle back in a year and say, yes, we were able to do this in an attractive way that helped businesses, was good for residents, and maintained walkability.
All right, thank you. Smith and Graves.
So just to respond, since that's fresh in my head, the trouble with maybe doing a sunset clause is if we green light it and businesses spend money on their railings and set them up as permanent fixtures, and then in a year we say, well, that wasn't very good, and then they have to tear all that out. That might be a little bit burdensome on the businesses. So just something to think about with that. The other part is to echo what Adam had said as well, is to give some kind of standards for the railings, what, like examples, like planter box, creative examples too, because I know that with no real definition, we get questions about that, but I understand they could be planter boxes that define the space, or they could be, a variety of things. So examples in that would be great.
Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, so actually, Councilmember Smith just took two of the things I was going to say, which are not just railings. I would like to see more decorative things such as, flower boxes, things of that nature. Let people get creative. I think it would be a bad idea to get real restrictive on what kind of barrier can be put up, because I think people might come up with good ideas on their own, not, let people come up with ideas. And then also, I'm very much in favor of this, but with a curfew. I don't want to see outdoor dining at 1 o'clock in the morning, things of that nature. So
It's already in the ordinance.
Perfect.
The hours of
10 o'clock,
operation are
right?
7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Perfect. So that's great, because also, like, music was mentioned, and that I don't think that's going to bother people as long as it ends at 10 p.m. So that's also good with me. And also the curfew, people are worried about, people being drunk on the sidewalk. And I've talked to Chief Freeman about this. Obviously the later it gets at night, the drunker people get. So as long as just residents that are concerned, if there's a 10 p.m. curfew, I don't think it's going to be getting wild and crazy out on the sidewalks. We're going to have a more vibrant downtown. And I also agree with Councilman Smith regarding the sunset clause is a bad idea. If we're really trying to create a vibrant downtown and we want businesses to invest in this concept, I think it's a bad idea telling them that we're going to reanalyze everything after a year. That would discourage them from investing money and, putting forth a nice barrier and buying tables and things of that nature. I would feel horrible if a business put forth the effort and then we go through and just take it all out after a year. So that's my 2 cents.
I think I said I was going to call on Councilmember Roberts and then go to Councilmember Saper.
I'm just going to add two more bits to this. When you apply for these, there are already all these rules that you have to go through. You do have to go through Public Works. You do have to go through Community Development and Liquor Control. It's quite the process to get with a liquor license approval for outdoor patios. So there's a lot of due diligence already on the city side of things. And by my count, there's only 2 or 3 places in our entire city that would be applying for these that don't already have them. And they're incredibly small locations that would have 2 or 3 tables outside. So I don't think we would be having detrimental things. But yeah, any further burden, especially like having people spend stuff, even if it's a small amount of money, and to remove it later. But the city does already have things like permits and fees and a lot of due diligence on their part, including coming out and measuring and walking with you and making sure that it's done exactly right to not impede anybody. Because you guys do a great job.
Here we go. Councilmember Saper.
I would like to support the idea of a sunset clause, because we don't know how this is going to work out. It may work out well, it may not. And in terms of investment, we do know that the city is spending millions of dollars on parking facilities. And so clearly, parking spaces, sidewalks, public facilities have a great value. And the city, at this stage, is essentially giving that away to private businesses. I would, for one, like to see a lease arrangement worked out for those areas so that the private businesses are at least paying something for a city asset. But in lieu of that, since they're being given so much by the city, free, essentially, their investment in barriers of some kind is pretty minimal. And any losses they would incur, quote-unquote losses, at the end of a year, if we do change it, would be part of a normal course of business. And so I would like to support a sunset clause.
Is there somebody already in the queue there? Councilmember Toll.
I really appreciate that. Listening to everyone else, I made a realization in my head that if it's going to be taken off the table, you wouldn't invest very much money in it, which means it probably wouldn't look as great as I hope that it looks. So it may have been working against us. So thank you for everyone at the discussion. I've come full circle.
So, but could we maybe as an alternative look at having the police department in like a year, I don't know how we'd even track this a year out, but in a year from now, come back and say, here's what we've seen, here's what we haven't seen, there hasn't been any issues, this program's not a problem, and then we just continue on about life. No son said anything. But would that be okay with staff to come back?
I would note that the sidewalk dining ordinance says that licenses expire on October 31st of each year. So I do think that we could come back after October 31st of next year and let you know how 2022 went.
Even better. I think that'd be good. Thank you. So what further direction do you need? There we go. Or I'm pointing at you, but anyone, all of you?
I think that this is enough for us to put together the next round of amendments to the regulations and come back to you on those. I've made note that, washing sidewalks and playing music and fees and standards for railings are the top issues you would like us to address.
Sound good? Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 21, Delta Dental and Vision Agreement, Bill number 7622, ordinance number 9419.
All right, is there a first reading?
First reading?
I'm sorry, Kim, I'm skipping over.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you all remember, all benefits were marketed this year by the city's insurance broker, Lockton, and summaries of each benefits enhancement and savings were summarized and approved by you August 17, 2021. City Council regulars at the City Council regular meeting. Staff recommends approval of the Delta Dental Agreement for Delta and Vision Services for the City of North Kansas City employees from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2024. What you have in front of you is the contract for us to move forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a first reading?
First reading.
Second.
Second. Is there any council member comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. First reading carries. There we go.
An ordinance adopting and approving the enrollment agreement between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Delta Dental of Missouri for group dental and vision insurance for employees of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and their dependents, including approval of the A, group data form, B, benefits overview, C, enrollment regulations, and D, membership certificate, Delta Dental PPO.
I move that bill number 7622 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9419.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumby?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance adopting and approving the enrollment agreement between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Delta Dental of Missouri for group dental and vision insurance for employees of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and their dependents, including approval of the A, group data form, B, benefits overview, C, enrollment regulations, and D, membership certificate, Delta Dental PPO. Item 22, discussion regarding November City Council meeting dates.
I guess I could take this one. As we just previously discussed, several of us were going to be out of town for the National League of Cities City Summit in Salt Lake City. It has since been canceled due to COVID restriction, or due to COVID. So this item is to consider reinstating our regularly scheduled meeting on November 16th. Any council discussion on that? Any opposed?
Yeah, since it's gone
All right.
virtual, I say we go
Then-
back.
There we go. We are back to November 16th. Yes. Next item, please.
Number 23, approving accounts due and payable by the city through September 17th, 2021. Bill number 7626, ordinance number 9423.
First reading.
Second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through September 17th, 2021.
I move that bill number 7626 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9423.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Palumby. Councilmember Graves.
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
Councilmember Toll.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through September 17th, 2021.
Staff comments. Or, yes, correct, staff comments.
Evening, Mayor and Council. There are several reports that are in your packet, including the updated NKC Hospital COVID-19 packet. We did reverse the order on that after recognizing that maybe some people would be confused, so now it's going to read from newest to oldest. Just a quick update on that. I did have one quick thing that we'd like to share with the City Council. You guys have heard us time and time again kind of talk about how do we get young people to maybe explore a career path with city government, whether that be our police officers, whether that be fire, public works, human resources department. So I'm excited to share that we are actually part of the North Kansas City School District Pathways Program. That was a new program. It was hit on pause last year. That was actually one of the things that the school district paused last year as they re-entered the classroom with COVID. But they have reinstituted that particular program, and we're excited to be part of it. The city as itself is part of that particular program, as well as the police and fire department. So it is something that you kind of put your hat in and maybe hope that students are interested in learning about your particular field. So we have put ourselves into a couple of different options, hoping that we can have either some teachers join us as part of an externship, or to have a mentor or job shadow opportunities in the future. So I just kind of wanted to share that. That's some of the things that we are chasing down on the staff side to try to maybe get a few people to consider public service as a career path for them moving forward. Is there any other city staff member that would like to share anything? I didn't get anything, but
Any of them? Anthony? No, I'm kidding. All right.
that's all the staff comments I have for you this
Perfect.
evening.
Now we are on to council member comments, and we will start with council member Roberts.
Okay. Well, I actually have kind of a lot of things to talk about today. Shocking, but I'm going to start with something really positive. I just want to talk about the city staff. I've only been here for a couple months, but I've worked with a lot of you for the last couple years or longer. And just seeing how it is on the inside, how quickly you all work together and to complete tasks, the sidewalk dining being one of them, just how remarkably fast things are here as compared to when I would work with Kansas City, Missouri's government. It's just so efficient, and you guys really communicate well, both as me as a prior councilman and when I was just a business owner and a citizen. You guys are really great, and I think you guys all deserve a lot of big shout-outs. I feel like we give Anthony quite a bit, but everyone does a whole lot of work to make the city function really well for everybody that comes in and lives and works here. So big shout-out to all of you, because you guys are really tremendous. Couple things. That was just like a fluff before we get into it. So first, I want to say thanks for supporting my small business marketing plan and also pushing us to become bigger members of Visit KC. That was great to see both those in the budget. The other thing is there was an incident this week regarding skateboarding. A couple months ago when I first became a councilman, I actually reached out to the former city administrator about two ordinances that I wanted to look at, and those ordinances are 10.04.060 and 10.68.060, and they're about skateboarding and rollerblading on sidewalks and roadways, and how we need to adjust these. First of all, it basically makes it impossible for people to utilize roadways for rollerblading and skateboarding. But I live in that old avenues, and old avenues have very treacherous and dangerous sidewalks in a lot of places and very uneven, in addition to the ups and downs of driveways. I know because I've tried to rollerblade on them, I've tried to skateboard on them. They're very dangerous, and much more dangerous than being in roadways. Now in roadways we have bicycles, and we have a lot of bicycle lanes. We also have bird scooters everywhere, and I think if those can ride, surely we can handle rollerblades and skateboarding. We also need to, I think, accommodate them a lot more than we already do. I don't know much more than probably everybody here does about this incident this week, but I think if these ordinances didn't exist, that incident wouldn't have happened. We should be accommodating people on all types of surfaces and wheels, and I think our city can definitely handle it. So I'd like to look at those ordinances and look at adjusting our roadways to be accessible for all wheels. And then I'll wrap this up by saying tomorrow, on positive news, it's the start of fall. It's the autumn equinox. It's the best time of year, so there's pumpkin everything. Best weather of the whole world. So get out there and enjoy your fall. And that's all I got.
I'll say on the skateboarding ordinance, I did actually bring this up to Tom Bersey today, looking at, because I found some other towns that have done similar things, adding more exemptions, per se, like you can ride on streets that are 25 miles per hour or less. So it kind of keeps you in those neighborhood streets. So, I mean, something I'll be looking at going forward, and I'll let you guys know where we settle on that. Councilmember Clark.
Yes. Yeah, my excitement was attending my first block party. Ward 4, Seminole, 26th Street. Block party was a success. We had over 30 people show up, which is nearly about the amount of voters we have show up. So I felt pretty good about that. So a special shout out to Katie Stokes, Katie Schoper, and Yvonne Salinas who put that together. They did an awesome job. Yeah, of course. Thank you, city staff. This is, woo! Tonight was interesting, and I appreciate the community coming in and giving us feedback. Please know that, yeah, none of this job is easy when we look at dollar amounts. We could sit down and have an actual conversation that might be easier. And I don't have anything else, I don't think, written down. Oh, the kiddos in my ward have already made thank you cards in advance to the Parks Board. They're very influential kiddos. Like they're doing their thing, and I didn't set them up for it. No, I kind of did, but they put them together, so I'll have a pile of things for you guys to sort through. You know, just kind of priming you up for a little park action. But that's it.
Man, really leveraging those kids over there. You got to get Councilmember Flumby.
I don't have a lot. I am sad I missed the Ward 4 block party, but as you guys probably know, I've been MIA for the last couple weeks, but I'm back, even though I'm a little jet lagged, and it's, 3 a.m. Europe time, so I'm keeping it together. I did want to thank our staff, especially Sarah and Anthony, for all of their work in terms of our replacement for our delineators and kind of our upcoming plans for the Complete Streets project. And then I also want to thank everybody up here because I know that the last few weeks have been a lot for us. There's been a lot of meetings. I missed some of them. So I commend everybody who was here and did a lot of work. And then in terms of some of the comments that were made by the citizens tonight, I do kind of want to reiterate what Amy said, that, none of us really like to spend all this money that we have seen in the budget, but there are things that do need to be done, and there are things that we need to take care of in terms of our community. And, we signed up for this, and so we're willing to kind of do what it's going to take to get some of the goals that this council has laid out. That's it.
To help you make up, we scheduled a meeting tomorrow. Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to thank all of the people that came out and spoke tonight, all of our the comments from the community. That's really refreshing, even though sometimes it's painful to listen to people say their truth right to your face. And it actually, I'm happy when people come and give us their feedback and comments. And I would like to see more of that moving forward. And I would encourage people to get off Facebook and come in here and let us know what you're thinking. In regards to the budget, as Councilmember Saper mentioned this previously, I agree with a lot of the things that were said by the residents concerning the budget. I do think that there are things in the budget that I don't agree with. And as Councilmember Saper pointed out, we vote on these things as they come up. So there's more to be discussed on that. And we are listening when you guys come and make comments. I'm taking notes. I was looking around. Other people are listening, taking notes. So I do think it's more effective if you're a resident and you want to be heard to come speak versus just complaining on Facebook or spreading rumors and things of that nature. Secondly, I agree with Councilmember Roberts and the mayor regarding the skateboarding ordinance. I was going to speak up on that, and they've already spoken on that. We have a lot of skateboarders in the community, and one thing I'm focused on, I haven't made a big deal out of it now because we're focused on the River Forest Park. But once that's taken care of, I want to get a skate park here in North Kansas City and give people a place to go. We have a lot of skateboarders in our community, and I think that's very important. There's a lot of communities around us that have skate parks that are similar size as us. It can be done very, very easily. Just right down the road, Riverside has a nice one, for example. And then also, I like to throw out ideas. This might be a stupid idea, you guys tell me, but I think we should discuss Aaron Hansen came in and spoke about skateboards. And another thing he mentioned is Aaron lives on 26th Avenue, and people fly down 26th Avenue, and also where I live, 23rd Avenue. And myself, Aaron Hansen brought it up, and then some other people in our neighborhood, Anthony can attest to this, have floated the idea of putting stop signs. And here's 3 places I'd like to throw out, and it's up for discussion. I'm curious to see what other people think, and I'd also like to talk to the people that live on these corners and see what they think. One place would, and these are all actually on Fayette. So if you go Fayette and 23rd, Fayette and 26th, which that's where Aaron Hansen lives and he was mentioning, and then Fayette and 27th. And so if you look at those streets, there are long stretches with no stop signs. And people drive down those streets to avoid Armour Road, to avoid the stoplights. So I can sit in my driveway and watch people driving 40 miles per hour easily past the high school. And I think that if we put stop signs in strategic places and force them to come to a stop, then that might slow people down. And there's a lot of kids in that area. The mayor's kids included, my kids. There's lots and lots of kids in that area, as well as cats, and squirrel got run over in front of my house the other day. Some people might be happy about that, but that's all for me.
That would be a stern debate in the neighborhood, I think, whether or not that's good for the squirrels. I guess that's something Anthony, or I don't know, sorry. I knew I was going to pick on you eventually. No, I don't know who would do street stop signs there, see, there she's pointing, no, they're pointing at each other. It's a team thing now.
We'll bring something forward.
If we could discuss that, yeah, maybe in the next few meetings or whatever. I don't know what your schedule looks like. And our public safety, there we go. We'll get everyone on this table in here for fun. Councilmember Saper.
Yeah, I would like to encourage again people to come to the council meetings and raise your objections, criticisms, or even if you can, praises for what we're doing. And remember that nothing is written in stone in a budget. It's a guide. And any part of it can be changed. We may not want to change any given part of it, but this is where you need to come in and talk to us. And talk to us directly on the street, at the council meeting, to the whole council as a whole. And consider Facebook and other media a backup to that, not the primary source for your comments to us, please. And the other thing is, I want to shout out to, even though I represent Ward 1, we represent the whole city. And I want to give a shout out to some of the youngest residents of Ward 4 for their kind pictures that they gave me for supporting their park.
I didn't get any pictures.
Yeah, you weren't
Sounds
lucky
like a
enough.
great batch of kids.
And I want to say that that's an important thing that we need to do, that park in River Forest, and a skateboard park, and basketball facilities. Those are the real missing ingredients. And we have the room. I know Councilman Graves here has a list of available real estate. That's his business, of course. But publicly owned land that's available for development. And some of it may be more desirable than others, some less, but that's something we need to move on quickly, I should think. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Toll.
I want to say it makes me very happy that the plants that were taken out for visibility were reused. I didn't know that. That's very exciting. The North Kansas City Pathways, I have worked with students that piloted that, and I'm very excited that the city is a part of that. And I would love to throw together a PowerPoint that would showcase why people should come and do it. If that's okay with you, I'll meet with you on that. I wanted to say thank you for all the public comments and take this time to respond to some of them. As far as our vision, and I can't speak for the mayor, this is for me. When I'm thinking of vision, I'm thinking of the plans that are published that have been in the works for years. I would say that's the city vision that you can look up online as far as complete streets, Burlington corridor, all of those things you can access, and I see that as a long-term vision for the city. There was a question about, or comments about the amount of money being spent upstairs. I would like to comment directly about that. I know other people have said this has been put off for several years. I see this as a way that we can stay in this building if we can make it functional. And that is much less expensive than trying to start a new building. So I do feel that it's imperative that we make these upgrades in order to use the current facility that we have. There was a question about the Equity and Inclusion Committee recruiting people for vacancies, and I would like to let the public know that that's already happened. So Mayor DeLong came to us, must have been in July, and wanted the EIC to showcase vacancies that we had in order to recruit more diversity in our public committees and commissions. I worked with Sarah Copeland on describing what it would take to be on the Planning Commission. We put a PowerPoint together. We presented it in August at the meeting, and also asked all of our committee members to work in their neighborhood to try to find someone that would be interested and that they could call me and I could put them in touch with a current member if they were interested. So that is something that we worked on and continue to work on. Is that done? As far as something that I think we could do for seeing yourself in public service, and this actually is something that Mayor DeLong did by accident with his own kids, I very strongly feel that we could use this space for field trips. I feel like we could put kids, all kids, up here, use the gavel, be the mayor, have some sort of a...
I'll officiate the meeting.
I think to see yourself here, that could change a kid's vision if you see yourself here. I think that's something we could do. And this year only, we have an elementary school that could walk here. So I think that's something that we could make happen. And I think it could be really fun.
Say it. I'm just not saying it.
There may have been a few conversations about that.
Oh, yay, that makes me so happy. I just feel like if you don't see it, you don't think of it as a path. So let's make it happen.
I agree with you, but there is you cannot be what you do not see, and you cannot think what you are never exposed to. So Mayor DeLong and I have chatted about, we have a real opportunity. There's an elementary school within walking distance for said field trip to sit where you're sitting and, kind of maybe envision themselves there one day.
I think that's a great idea. I actually know the standards and benchmarks, so I could make it a learning experience for you.
Somehow my kids would end up in the principal over this field trip, fighting over who gets to be mayor. Councilmember Smith.
Oh, wait, I have one last thing.
Go ahead, Councilmember.
I know that we have COVID fatigue. I know that nobody wants to talk about it, but we still have dedicated people doing all sorts of jobs at North Kansas City Hospital. So I want to say thank you to the doctors, nurses, and all employees that work at North Kansas City Hospital. I know this second round has been hard, and we really appreciate what you do. Now I'm done.
Councilmember Smith.
Nothing out of me tonight, thanks.
I about skipped you again. Councilmember Clevenger.
You're out of shock there. Couple of things. Well, first of all, I want to welcome Lindsay McGrone, if we're saying the last name right, to the Planning Commission. Thank her for her willing to step up to that post. And as far as the COVID numbers, I know we reinstituted, extended the mask mandate. What I'm looking at on the MARC website, it looks like the numbers are going down, if I'm reading that correctly, so that's a good sign. And hopefully with the vaccines becoming available for children, hopefully maybe it'll be our last extension. I hope it is, but we'll go on from there and review that at the time when it's time to do that. The budget, some people we've already responded about, like the community development, what we're spending up there. I do want to let people know that in the budget, as well as looking for studies, looking at assessing our infrastructure and what we need to do there. So I want to let people know that we're not forgetting about the infrastructure along with the other items that we have in the budget. let's see, they've already talked about the skate park and, different ordinances to look at. Councilmember Roberts brought that up. There are some volunteers in the community that are skateboardists, cyclists, pedestrians, or whatever, that would be willing to, work with staff on a committee type if that is needed or if their input is wanted. I know that there's people willing to step up to do that, so. Other than that, I think that's it.
All right, that kicks it over to me. I'll start with the acronym test. I have openings on the BZA, the IDA, and the TIF Commission. So there we go. Apply. Even if the board doesn't have an opening right now, just apply. I always want more applications. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell everybody apply for something. There you go. Apply. Walk to School Day, October 1st. I think. If there's not a bunch of kids at Mackin Park, it's a different day, but I believe it's October 1st, starting at 7:30 in the morning at Mackin Park. First, a thank you. So there we go. So I think it's always good to see some council members out there. So I will be out there. Pint Path is this weekend. The community development office really just needs some modernization. If you've been up there and seen it and seen how they have to work up there, all of City Hall needs various projects done. And this is just kind of the next one on the list. So I know we've taken a lot of time to kind of pick on that project, but I think there's a lot of benefit to making sure staff has a good place to work up there and a place that they can do the job that we tell them to do. So there we go. There's not really any follow-up to that one. Boom. Stumbling downhill here. That's it. Let's go. Oh, I see ooh, you're going to get me on procedure here. What? Oh, what are the figures of the COVID?
Right here.
Putting me in a spot here.
We have them
Let
right
me-
here.
Crystal.
On the 15th, we have
Oh, there we go.
41 active COVID cases, 25 recovering COVID cases. Total patients, COVID patients in the ICU are 16, 14 of which are on ventilators. And I emailed you, you wouldn't have it yet, I did it before the meeting started right here. I emailed you an updated graph and spreadsheet and numbers.
They already mentioned Pint Path, that's this weekend. There we go. Two plugs. Okay, next item, please, which is,
Number
there
27.
we go.
Consideration of a request to hold in recess into an executive session as requested by the interim city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant.
And we're not doing this one,
pursuant to
correct?
Missouri, we're not doing.
Can we move to
this one.
28, please? 28. That item is not ready for tonight.
Okay, consideration of a request to hold in recess into an executive session as requested by the interim city administrator to be held on this date on a litigation matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610-21-1.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Item 29, consideration of a request to hold in recess into an executive session as requested by the interim city administrator to be held on this day on a litigation matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610-0211.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And so we can let Stephen go. There will be no further public business, no further votes after the live stream cuts off here. The only thing left is adjournment. Thank you.